Over here we introduce by far the most legendary character in the entire MISTBORN series. Hey there, welcome back, and if you're new, welcome onto the channel. It's great to have you here. Today we're going to be kicking off the first video of 2023 with a Brandon Sanderson book review. For those of you who don't know, Brandon Sanderson is a superb fantasy author and arguably one of the best fantasy authors of all time. The speed he puts out books is just amazing. I've covered Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archive in detail a few months back. I still have to talk about the individual books, but I went for an overall summary of the story and I gave you 3 videos on that. So today I wanted to talk about his different saga, which is the MISTBORN saga. I got the first 3 books and I'm done with the first 2 and I'm almost done with the last one, and I'm super excited to see how it ends. But for today, we're going to be concentrating on the first book. So the first book is called The Final Empire. It is book 1 in the MISTBORN saga and it is absolutely fantastic. I have an unpopular opinion, very unpopular opinion. I enjoyed the MISTBORN saga much more than the Stormlight Archive. Please don't kill me. Okay, maybe not much more, but the MISTBORN saga for me was definitely a little bit up than the Stormlight Archive. Just because of one reason, I felt much more connected to the characters in this book. In the very first book, while I struggled to understand what exactly was going on in the Stormlight Archive's first book. I first thought that maybe it was my first introduction to the Cosmere and I had read this in the wrong order. I read the Stormlight Archive first and I wasn't introduced to the Cosmere as this big fantasy world. So maybe it was a little jarring for me. But then I realized that they have very little connection. There's absolutely little to no connection between this book and the Stormlight Archive. So they are both standalone pieces of the first book. So if I read that and I enjoyed it, and if I read this and I enjoyed it more, then this has to be practically better for me. Yeah, that is an unpopular opinion, so I'm going to make this video into different parts. The first one is the world building, because it's a completely different fantasy world and you won't understand what's going on if I don't introduce a little bit of the world's characteristics, how it looks, how are the people there, and what's the social system, etc. The second will be introducing the characters, and finally will be the plot description. Right, so without any further ado, let's jump into the world building. The sun is red, ash rains from the sky, there are no flowers, the plants aren't green anymore, it is a post-apocalyptic world. Everything is absolutely depressing, absolutely sad. There's one superpower in that world. He is known as the Lord Ruler and he rules over an empire known as the Final Empire. His word is absolute. He is treated as a sliver of infinity, an omnipresent super being, much like God, and everybody treats him like he is God. The Lord Ruler has his main base with his palace in a place known as Lukrembo. It has many different classes of society, ranging from the noblemen to the absolute bottom, the ska, S-K-A-A. So in the social status, the noblemen are at the top. They consist of the richest, wealthy, and most influential people across the entire empire. Just below them come the guards and the soldiers and the people in the army. Finally, at the very bottom come the ska. They are the absolute scum of society. They are made to work without any payment, just meager amounts of rations and food to survive, and they are treated horribly. They're the absolute bottom, and they are basically servants to everybody without any money. Amongst the political powers, at the very top is the Lord Ruler. His word is absolute. When he says something, it has to be done. He is all-powerful and the absolute ruler of that land. Just below him comes the ministry. It's divided into 2 sections. One is the steel ministry and other are the obligators. The obligators basically run the entire empire. They take care of the finances, they keep a check on the noblemen to see if they don't step too out of line, and they basically run the entire country without the Lord Ruler having to step in himself. The Steel Ministry, on the other hand, is a very special case which I will talk about later. Just keep the word Steel Ministry in your mind for now. Tuck it away. So, below the obligators directly come the noblemen, and they run everything else. The Ska have no say in what happens to them or anybody they know. And at the very bottom is the underworld. There are thieving groups, many different gangs and clubs where people come together to collectively scam the noblemen and get away with some money to survive. So, now that you have a basic description of the world, let's talk about the characters and the plot. Our main character for this book is a girl called Vin, V-I-N. She lives in the underground and she's part of a thieving group which is trying to run scams on noblemen to try to take their money and run away. Vin has some sort of magical power that she can use to influence other people's emotions and make them more susceptible to the scam that her master is performing at that very moment. So her master takes her everywhere because he kind of understands that she has this power, but he can't exactly explain it. One day he goes to the Steel Ministry to complete one of his scams, and he is followed by a dangerous creature known as a Steel Inquisitor. They are horrible monsters and creatures who have spikes shoved through their eyeballs. They don't have any eyeballs, they just have spikes that jut out the back of their heads and spikes in their bodies. They love killing, torturing, and any form of brutality that is available to them. They absolutely adore that sort of thing, and they find it amusing. They are horrifying creatures and nobody knows how they survive. So, Vin's master is running a scam and he gets followed by one of the Inquisitors. Over here we introduce by far the most legendary character in the entire MISTBORN series. We have a person called Kelsier, K-E-L-S-I-E-R. Kelsier and his friend Doxon happen to see the Steel Inquisitor going after Vin. And Doxon provides some information to Kelsier that she has those powers. He found out from a source and he was frankly certain that she has these powers. Kelsier, who himself has these powers, wants to take her under his wing, and he follows her. When he shows up at their hideout, they all refer to Kelsier as the survivor of Hatsin. He's such a legendary figure that even though Vin is the main character of this book, Kelsier absolutely stole the show, and I promise you will not forget him. He's known as the Survivor because he was such a legendary thief. He tried to rob the Lord Ruler himself and he got caught. He was sent to a Ska torture camp called the Pits of Hatsin, from which he was the only person to have ever survived and escaped. Hence, he is known as a survivor of Hatsin. Such a legendary figure, and he's such a jokester. He's such a funny guy. His charisma, his jokes, his wittiness will absolutely get to you. Now, he tells Vin that she's an Allomancer, more specifically, a MISTBORN. Now, what is Allomancy and what are MISTBORNs? I'll explain that briefly later on in the video, but all you need to know is they can ingest metals into their body and then sort of burn them inside themselves to give them special powers. There are 10 allomantic metals, again which I'll explain later, and each of them gives a person a certain power. An allomancer is a person who can only burn one at a time, like each of them has only one metal that they'll ever burn in their life. And a MISTBORN is a person who has access to all the metals and is able to use all of them or multiple of them at the same time. Allomancers are common among the nobility, MISTBORN are rare among the nobility itself, and really rare among the Ska. Kelsier and Vin are two examples of MISTBORN inside the Ska, which is really rare. So he tells Vin that she is a MISTBORN and he is now going to train her on how to control these new powers of hers. Then he decides to let her in on his job. His job requires the skills of the most skilled thieves in the underworld and try to get them to do this insane idea that he has. Over here we are introduced to some of the best characters I've ever seen. I don't think any other book had better fleshed out characters as compared to MISTBORN. But here we go. The first one is Clubs. Clubs is a smoker, means he can mask the use of allomantic metals of himself and people around him from other MISTBORN, since MISTBORN can actually hear when somebody else is using metals. Next up we have Doxon. He's my favorite character other than Kelsier and Vin, since he has no powers, but he is a really important part of Kelsier's crew. He's basically an informant, he gathers information, and he runs the whole plan when Kelsier isn't around. Then third we have Breeze. Breeze is able to control people's emotions, change them, soothe them, remove their fear, make them more scared. He can control their emotions and play around with them very subtly, and nobody can sense his touch. Since MISTBORN are trained to sense the touch of other people, he is very subtle at doing that and you won't even come to know. The fourth one is Ham. Ham is able to burn a metal called pewter, which allows him to increase his physical strength. It allows him to do every single thing you can do, but with 100 times the physical ability and strength. And then we have the leader of the Scar Rebellion, but he is unimportant, and there are many more characters who will be introduced into the crew, but these are the very base members. Now, Kelsier's plot is to overthrow the final empire and kill the Lord Ruler. Everyone is shocked at this, and he makes it very clear that he actually plans to do this. He wants to assemble the best team the underworld has ever seen and take out the Lord Ruler, who has been ruling over this entire empire for over 1,000 years. He wants Scar to have an opportunity, and he is going to free them, start a rebellion, and kill the Lord Ruler, hence overthrowing a 1,000-year-old empire. So the story is basically all surrounded and centered around this main plot. There are many different subplots. Vin has the duty of pretending to be a noble woman so that she can sneak into the grand balls that are hosted by different noble houses and gain information and maybe get some important accomplices and acquire some new acquaintances who can give her some invaluable information. Over here, she meets a young man who's part of the nobility known as Ellen Venture. He's again a really amazing character, lots of charisma, and he will be continuing to come in the second and third books. He's not as important in the first one, so I just want to mention him so that when I mention him there, you know who I'm talking about. Now, to finally explain Allomancy, I'll keep this short and simple. So now, there are 10 allomantic metals and I'll go through them very fast and I'll tell you what happens when a person burns them. The first one we have is iron. Its allomantic power is to push on nearby sources of metals. So for example, this has a lot of physics involved. If I flip a coin and push it, the coin will be pushed far away until it hits an object which has more mass than me. So if it hits a wall or goes into an object which has more mass than me, for example, a massive elephant or any other object, I will be pushed backwards. So if I drop a coin on the ground, it'll keep falling until I push it down. And as soon as it hits the ground, I will be pushed up. And that's what these allomancers, MISTBORN mainly, because other people can't use all of these at the same time. This is what MISTBORN use to fly. They toss one coin down and shoot themselves up, and then pull that coin back from behind them while shooting another coin down and repeating that process. The next is steel, which pulls on metal objects nearby, so hence the pulling of the coins. The third one is tin, which increases your senses, all your senses, the sense of taste, smell, hearing, eyesight, everything. The fourth one is pewter. It increases physical abilities, as I mentioned. The fifth one is brass. It soothes and dampens your emotions. That's what Breeze uses to control emotions. The sixth one is zinc. It inflames emotions. The seventh one is copper. It hides the allomantic pulses. So Clubs, who is a smoker and hides other people from sensing his allomantic pulses, uses copper. He burns only copper since he's an allomancer and not a MISTBORN. The next one is bronze. It allows one to hear allomantic pulses. So if somebody is not burning copper and you're burning bronze, you can tell if they are burning any other metal. The next is the most important one, which is atium. It allows you to see into other people's futures just before they're about to do that. So if you were to burn atium and I move my hand up like this, and then I'm about to move it back, you'll already see my hand going back before it does in some sort of image. So it'll move back and then I'll move it back. So you will be able to see a split second into the future and know what I'm about to do. And one is which people really don't understand, and that's gold. It lets you see into your own past. I have no explanation for this since I have no idea how it works. nor do the characters in the book. The entire MISTBORN saga has been one of the best books I've read in a long time. It's been a long time since I connected so well with the characters. It makes me want to feel like I should be there. However, it is better than Stormlight, just a little bit. Please don't kill me for saying that. So thank you so much for watching this video. Brandon Sanderson, as always, never fails to impress, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for sticking around till the end, and if you did, you're absolutely lovely. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.